My life with Kunla was sweet. Oh, just me, him, and our small baby Tolu. We used to laugh a lot in our small Lagos flat. The sun always seemed to shine brighter then, you know. We would cook together, sometimes burning the jollof rice, but always sharing the blame and the funny stories afterwards. Our home was a place of simple joys and predictable routines, a sanctuary from the bustling city outside. Kunla was a good man, a loving husband, and a doting father to our little Tolu. He worked hard at the bank, and I managed the home, creating a warm nest for our growing family. Life was uncomplicated, and I cherished every moment of its sweet, ordinary rhythm, never imagining how quickly things could change. Then Kunli's mother, Mama Aid, came to live with us. Mama Aid. At first I was happy. More hands to help with Tolu, I thought. But the very first week, Wahala started in my kitchen. I was making a goosey soup, my special recipe. Suddenly, poof! The soup exploded everywhere, on the walls, the ceiling, even on my new jail. It was a disaster of epic proportions, a culinary catastrophe. Mama Aid just walked in, looked at the mess, looked at me, and smiled a very small, knowing smile. She didn't offer to help clean up immediately. Instead, she just stood there, her gaze lingering on the splattered goosey, as if it held some profound secret only she could decipher, a silent commentary on my domestic skills. That was the first time I felt a tiny shiver, like a small insect crawling on my skin. Her smiles were not always friendly smiles, you see. They were different, like she knew things I didn't know, things nobody told her. She would sit in her corner of the living room just watching me feed Tolu, watching me cook, watching me talk to Kunli. Her eyes, they were old and deep, like two dark wells you could fall into and never come out. Sometimes I'd catch her staring at me with an intensity that made the hairs on my arms stand up, her lips moving silently as if in prayer or something else entirely. It was unnerving, this constant, quiet scrutiny that made me feel like an open book she was reading without my permission. Mama Aid settled into our home, and her room quickly became her own private kingdom. A faint, unfamiliar scent, like dried herbs and something earthy, started to drift from under her door. It wasn't a bad smell exactly, but it was strange, adding to the growing list of peculiarities surrounding her presence. I tried to be a good daughter-in-law, offering her tea and asking if she needed anything, but she mostly kept to herself, emerging for meals or to sit in her silent observation post. Kunla said she was just adjusting, that old people had their ways, but a small part of me felt like our home wasn't entirely ours anymore, that an invisible boundary had been drawn around Mama Aid's space. After Mama Aid arrived, small, strange things started to happen around the house, things I couldn't quite explain. My favorite mug, the one Kunla bought me for our anniversary, would move from the dish rack to the other side of the counter overnight, even though I was sure I had placed it securely. Doors that I knew I had closed would creak open slowly, just a little bit, as if someone unseen had nudged them. Sometimes I would hear soft footsteps in the hallway when everyone was supposed to be asleep. These little disturbances were like tiny pebbles dropped into a calm pond, creating ripples of unease that spread through my days and nights, making me question my own senses. Mama Aid herself was a study in mystery. She always wore these dark-colored wrappers, usually indigo or a deep brown, even when the Lagos sun was blazing hot outside. Her hair was always neatly plaited in an old-fashioned style, and she rarely spoke unless spoken to, preferring to communicate with knowing glances and subtle gestures. Often I would hear her muttering softly to herself in Yoruba, words too low for me to catch, her eyes fixed on something far away. Her presence was quiet yet overwhelmingly powerful, a silent force that seemed to permeate every corner of our home. I found myself observing her as much as she observed me, trying to decipher the enigma she presented. I tried to talk to Kunli about my feelings, about the odd occurrences and Mama Ade's unsettling behavior. Kunla, darling, I'd start, don't you think Mama is a bit different? But Kunla, my dear, sweet, oblivious Kunla, would just laugh. He would say, Ah, Funke, you're just tired. Looking after Tolu is a lot of work. Mama's just being Mama. That's how old people are, full of their traditions and old ways. He didn't see the way her eyes followed me, or the way the air felt thick when she was in a room. He thought I was imagining things, perhaps stressed from new motherhood, and his dismissals made me feel even more isolated with my growing suspicions and anxieties. Slowly, the atmosphere in our home began to change. It used to be so light, so full of laughter and easy conversations. Now it felt heavy. There was a tension in the air, an unspoken something that made me constantly on edge. The feeling of being watched became almost constant, even when Mama Aid wasn't in the same room. It was as if her influence extended beyond her physical presence. Our joyful little flat started to feel less like a sanctuary and more like a place where secrets whispered in the shadows, and the familiar comfort I once cherished was slowly eroding, replaced by a creeping sense of foreboding. One morning I noticed my beautiful hibiscus plant by the window. The one with the vibrant red flowers that always made me smile was starting to look sad. Its leaves were drooping and the usually bright petals were dull and lifeless. I watered it, checked the soil, made sure it had enough sun, but it only got worse. Mama Aid walked past it one day, paused, looked at the dying plant for a long moment, and then just shook her head slowly without saying a word, a faint, unreadable expression on her face. It felt like another silent message, another strange event in the growing list of things I couldn't understand since her arrival, making my heart sink a little further with each wilting leaf. Then the dreams started. Oh, those dreams were not good at all. I would dream of flying over dark, swirling waters or of shadowy figures with gleaming eyes watching me from just beyond my sight. Sometimes I'd be lost in a thick, unending forest, calling out for Kunle and Tolu, but hearing no reply. I would wake up in a cold sweat, my heart pounding like a talking drum, but the details of the dreams would fade quickly, leaving only a residue of fear and a deep sense of unease. These nocturnal journeys left me exhausted and jumpy during the day, adding to the stress of caring for Tolu and navigating the strange new dynamics in our home. The nights became a time of heightened awareness for me. While Kunle slept soundly beside me, oblivious to anything amiss, I would lie awake, listening. I often heard soft sounds, like someone chanting very quietly, the words indistinct but rhythmic. Other times there would be a faint tapping, like fingernails on wood, coming from the direction of Mama Aid's room. These noises were never loud enough to be undeniable proof of anything, always subtle, always deniable. Kunle, bless his heart, heard nothing, snoring peacefully, which only made me feel more alone and more convinced that something very unusual was happening under our roof. My biggest worry, though, was Tolu. My sweet baby boy started to become unusually restless and fretful. He would cry more often than before, especially when Mama Aid was holding him, or even just nearby. He would arch his back and wail, his little face turning red, and nothing I did seemed to soothe him completely when she was present. This was not like my usually calm Tolu. It broke my heart to see him so distressed, and a new, chilling fear began to take root. Was Mama Aid's strange presence somehow affecting my child? This concern overshadowed all the other oddities, making me desperate for answers. One night, the worst happened. Tolu woke up screaming a terrible, piercing cry that went straight to my heart. He was burning with fever, his little body hot to the touch, and he was struggling to breathe properly, his small chest heaving with effort. Kunle and I were thrown into a state of complete panic. We tried everything we knew, a cool cloth, paracetamol, but nothing seemed to bring the fever down. Kunle was pacing the room, his face a mask of fear, muttering about rushing to the hospital, his usual calm completely shattered by our son's distress. It was a terrifying moment, the kind every parent dreads, where helplessness threatens to consume you entirely. In the midst of our frantic efforts, Mama Aid appeared in the doorway, calm as ever. She took one look at Tolu, then at us, and simply said, "Bring him." There was an authority in her voice that made us obey without question. She took Tolu into her room, the one with the herbal scents, and began to work. She produced a small clay pot filled with a dark, pungent mixture of herbs I had never seen before. As she gently applied the concoction to Tolu's forehead, chest, and the soles of his feet, she began to mutter. Her voice low and rhythmic, chanting words in an ancient-sounding dialect of Yoruba. I watched, torn between deep fear and a desperate hope that whatever she was doing would work. And then, almost like magic, Tolu began to settle. His breathing, which had been so ragged, started to even out. The terrible heat radiating from his small body began to subside. Within what felt like an eternity but was probably less than an hour, his fever broke. He let out a soft sigh and fell into a peaceful sleep. Kunle was overcome with relief, tears streaming down his face as he thanked his mother profusely, calling her a lifesaver. Mama Aid just smiled that same soft, enigmatic smile, patted Tolu gently, and said, "He will be well now." The air in the room seemed to lighten, the oppressive fear lifting as quickly as it had descended. A few weeks after Tolu's frightening illness and miraculous recovery, Mama Aid announced she was ready to return to her village. She said her work here was done, that Tolu was strong now. After she left, our home slowly began to feel like ours again. The strange noises stopped, objects stayed where I put them, and even my hibiscus plant started to show new green shoots. The heaviness in the air lifted, replaced by the familiar lightness I had missed so much. I never found out for sure if Mama Aid was truly a witch, using some unseen power, or just a wise old woman skilled in traditional herbal remedies, her actions driven by a fierce, protective love for her grandson. Perhaps, I thought, some things are not meant to be understood, only accepted, a blend of tradition, mystery, and the undeniable magic of a mother's love.